The implications and key features of the National Budget 2026 were the central focus of a critical discussion hosted yesterday in Colombo by Ernst and Young Sri Lanka, which united government figures, policymakers and private sector leaders.
The approach that we have adopted has instilled the confidence and to generate more revenue from the existing base, at the same time growing our revenue base also. As a result, as Echi mentioned during the budget speech as well, for the first time the borrowing limit was requested based on what we have tabled in the parliament to reduce by about 60 billion plus or minus. That shows the fundamentals are very well established as of now, which is momentum in terms of collection through several approaches. One angle is digitization, another angle is zero tolerance for corruption. And it allows better integration, less leakages through the system, and allow everyone to take part in the journey. We noted on the screen as well the digital drive to be implemented in 3 phases. Phase 1, industries, businesses that were subjected to, or rather going through the SWAT repeal, is to be brought into the digital invoicing system. Very happy to say the testing are very successful and it will be deployed very soon. Phase 2 is for VAT registered businesses, and phase 3 it will be rolled out the full scale e-invoicing, including for everyone else to take part. I suppose if I were to approach the answer in this manner, if I were to encapsulate the entire budget into one word, that is the growth that we are going to create for the country. For the medium term, 7+% GDP is what we are aiming at. In order to do that, a key ingredient is the amounts that we allocate, the capital expenditure, is being spent in a manner that it will add on to the economic activities. When projects that are ready to implement is being started and funds are allocated, chances of the execution success in the execution side is also high. But digitization is brought into the project monitoring as well. So instead of relying in a lot of manual records, which is the current practice, we have already started the process. The system is being built in, being tested as of now. So we believe it will be ready and available for use from 1st Jan onwards. So combining digitization into this process, we are expecting better results as we move into 2026, and therefore we believe resources are allocated, processes are put in place to achieve the expected result.
There is a misconception that the incentive structure around the port city has changed. And in point of fact, the original incentive structure was limited in time. The regulations were there for a certain period of time, and that was in order to get it up and running. Unfortunately, during that time, the country went through several phases of challenges, the COVID, the dollar crisis, and all of the other attendant circumstances which prevented any foreign investment from coming into Sri Lanka. So subsequently, I think the Ministry of Finance and others were involved with the IMF, and we managed to bring about a scheme whereby there was a rules-based governance structure and a new incentive scheme was introduced, which I think in comparison to what is now prevailing in Dubai, Singapore and others is quite attractive. So it is not going to be an easy task to attract investment, but from what we have seen with this rule-based investment program, there is quite a bit of interest coming in. Now, what needs to be done in order to attract that investment is not really fiscal incentives, because that will start to kick in only when they have come and become operational and when profits come in.
In any society, the shape of the society determined by many factors. So contribution of different stakeholders, resources that you have, your cultures. So there are so many things, even the level of technology that you have achieved. Among them, it is a fact that the political sphere is very crucial. Number 2 is the quantitative and qualitative perspective. So when we talk about a budget, of course it deals with numbers. What comes first is numbers, whether these allocation adequate enough, and so ST was just struggling with numbers, and maybe he spent almost more than 2 months to fix all those things. Numbers also matter. In this particular budget, sometime you may have debates, argument that numbers or the amounts allocated are adequate or whether they have been set aside for the right direction or not. But if you need to, I request you to look at beyond the numbers. The qualitative aspect of this particular the budget really matters, because when we revive a country, especially revive a country from a kind of economic abyss, first that stabilization has been achieved. To take off from that particular point onward, this qualitative aspect and the inclusivity really matter. So in most of the social, the welfare, the protection spending or social spending, some said, the previously the followed spending were also there. In addition, new things, sometimes the amount may be insignificant, but the qualitative aspect is very important. We have not excluded anyone. No one has been left behind. And looking at the budget, the entire budget is woven within 6 objectives. They are very critical. Number 1 is objective of attaining medium-term growth rate more than 7% within inclusive framework again, and moving towards sustainability. The other area is the external sector. In order to achieve some of our economic objectives, we need to have a significant portion from our external trade. The diversification in terms of the destination of the countries and the products and new products as well. And the other area is debt sustainability. It is a given situation and we need to manage it. It is not that something we strategically plan for. Next one is the expansion of production economy. Sometimes there are views of what's really meant by a production economy. To some extent, yes, it is a fact that we need to think of promoting the local production. So even in areas where we can just use them as import substitutions and other things. But it doesn't mean that the production economy does not aim to restrict importation. Importation would be all right, but we need to promote importation for investment and intermediary goods, and the production economy must be promoted. The other one is digitalization. These are the key 6 strategic objectives.
I think certainly from a private sector perspective, the budget provides stability. If we go back to 2022, during the crisis, I think the biggest fear for the private sector was that we would go down the path of some countries in the world that had had similar crises. Countries like Lebanon and Venezuela and Zimbabwe, where for years you've had high inflation and crashing exchange rates, and there was a real risk we could go down the same path. But with the steps that were taken, with getting into the program that we got into, we have seen unprecedented discipline in the economy. And in a sense, hitting rock bottom in 2022 gave the policymakers the space to make some of the adjustments we should have made decades ago. And this budget is a continuation of those policies and that discipline. The state-owned enterprises are mostly breaking even or making a profit. Of course, the adjustments are painful because we had to adjust prices to market prices. But what that has brought about is stability that we have never, I think, seen. Or well, not in the last so many decades. And with this budget, you can see a continuity of that stability. But the most important factor here in the budget was we have continued the discipline. With that discipline, you're going to see a game changer for the private sector.
The discussion served as a vital forum for stakeholders to understand the policy underpinnings of the 2026 budget and align their strategies with the national economic direction.